Welcome everyone. Zimmermann, introduce the show. What is it called again? Because I never get it right.
The secret behind the female muscle.
And today we're joined by a four-time Pro Show winner now, three-time Miss Olympia athlete. She's done figure, women's physique, women's bodybuilding. She has written hundreds of articles. She is also now an actor. We're gonna ask about that. And a model and gym owner.
Yep.
And clothing brand designer.
Mm-hmm.
What else, Theresa?
I don't know. Whatever else I can do, I guess.
This is crazy. Did you always want to do more things than just one thing? Like as a bodybuilder or just as a woman? Have you always been interested in doing a lot of different things?
Like whenever I mean, you have the backstory, my past and all that stuff, but I wanted to like be a trainer. I wanted to own my own gym, and then I wanted to be a pro athlete. Like that was like the three main goals. And then it was like, after you achieve them, you're like, okay, what do I want to do now? And you're like, okay, let's go win some pro shows. And then you got to fix to the Olympia. And then it was just like everything else kind of just, fell in line. And it's just like, it's one thing after another, but it's just, I think it's just believing in yourself and like literally trying everything and anything you possibly can in life.
This episode, Zimmermann, what was it called?
Red flag coaches.
Correct. But before that, we have some exciting news to share because back in the day, for people who remember women's bodybuilding in the 90s, the girls that were good, Joe Weider had some contacts with Hollywood and things like this. So the girls went on stage, but they just didn't stop there. They went into the movie. It was TV series. It was movies and commercials. They used their physique to go further into other things, and that is just what Theresa now is doing. Can you talk a little bit about this exciting new project that you're going to do?
So the first one started with Brock. It was actually for a movie called Test, and it actually is a bodybuilding movie. So I was featured in there. It was right after I came right out of a show. So I actually posed on stage in there and did some background extra work. And that landed me my first spot on the IMBD page, which is for, the industry for entertainment. And then this.
Hi, I'm Theresa Ivancik. I play Ace Minion on The Giant. It's a 5-season, 6-episode TV series that you do not want to miss. I'm extremely excited as we're ramping up and Kevin B. Ploth has been hard at work. It's not been an easy task, but I want you all to stay tuned for more.
One, I have been talking to Kevin B. Ploth, and I'd gotten the email, and I never casted for it. I never applied or anything, and he was interested in me doing it. And it's going to be more involved in like an MMA fighter situation. It's called The Giant. I will be in episode 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 now. I just got that news literally 2 seconds ago, and I will also be in season 1, 3, 4, and 5.
Season 5, already now you will be in season 5. How does that work? Because we're not Zimmermann, you probably done some action movies in the past. I'm trying to get my first job as it, but how do you get the job already now for season 5? How does this work?
I think literally like all this is like they know your character. So he said I'll be getting my scenes and lines as we begin to shoot. So I just signed my NDA. I signed my contract with them for this. I followed Arnold's blueprint, basically. I've listened to him over the years and kind of what he did, and he ended up, doing the bodybuilding, and then he wanted to be an actor, and then he just kept going, governor and all that stuff, So it's just never putting an ending. Like your train just keeps moving. Like there is no stopping.
I'm not very happy with either the Democrats or the Republicans. Maybe you can start your new party after this. You can go into that route after the movies. You never know, huh?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. This episode is called Coaches Red Flag Zimmermann. So we want to have an athlete who has how many years? When did you start as an amateur? How many years ago was that?
I started learning weight training in 2007.
Okay, so you started competing when?
Pretty much 2007. It was literally, it'll be 20 years next
20
year.
years, yeah.
Yeah.
And the industry has changed a lot since then. I've seen a lot of changes, and we can go back a little bit then. How did you first link up with Zimmermann as your new coach, and what was some of the good flags you can say that made you maybe choose him in the beginning?
We literally just, I posted something about like some of the medical and health issues that I was having. And I'll be honest with you, he was pretty much like one of the only people that actually went into depth with a lot of my issues and kind of like made me feel like I was still worth doing things. It was like I'm kind of like I was teetering, like, okay, am I going to have these issues? Do I need to stop competing, and whatnot? But it was the conversations we were having that made me feel like a person again. It made me feel like I'm still an athlete and I still have more to give. And it was the response, it was the respect, it was the, hey, we'll get through this. It's not like, there was no cookie cutter at all, even in just the beginning conversation. So I just literally knew that we were going to kind of hit it off and link together. We were going to work together. It was the first time I was going to be able to work together with a coach.
Zimmermann, how important is that to get the best out of an athlete to fix the health issues and have this type of communication? And because a lot of coaches don't even look at those things.
Yeah, I think it's so sad because there's so much more an athlete can achieve, but not if they are not 100% healthy in like mentally and physically. So doesn't matter what was before. It's always the recent situation the athlete is in, and you need to take consideration of what is happening now. And then, of course, setting a long-term goal, long-term like a year or so, because I don't think you can achieve great things. And for Theresa, it's like sky's the limit still, I believe, that you need to have a plan and, like she said, communicate together and work together as a team. But if you're not healthy from the inside, you cannot be at your absolute best from the outside. So that's why I saw this as a long-term project, and I told her this, not think about competing like right now. But she's definitely future in the sport, and that was her thinkings also. So she was also kind of like, for now, it's not about competing or stepping on stage, but I still have this fire in me. And then I thought we were a pretty good fit, and then we went further into this conversation of how we could maybe work together.
So if we go back into the start, because this is hopefully for athletes to look out, because there's a lot of young girls who probably don't know who they're going to choose or who they want to work with and things like that. So when you started, how did you pick a coach then? What was the approach of coaches back then to get clients? How did it work back in 2007? Because I know there wasn't so many coaches even working with females at the time. What were some of the mistakes you did then? I don't say mistake, but who you wouldn't have done again? How was the coaching game back in those days, 2007?
In the beginning, I self-taught. I Googled AOL and that was it. We didn't have, in magazines, whatever that girl was doing, you kind of tried. We didn't really have a way of communication with anybody. It was a lot different back then. So in the beginning phases, I kind of learned self-taught myself. And then me and Jeff, worked together too, because he did some competitions. And then I was like, I'm just going to kind of try a little bit more. I know I want to do this, for a very long time. And I think it was just like, from posts and things like that, you were getting coaches that would like message you and say, hey, let's work together.
How did they message you? Well, message boards or?
It was like Facebook back then, because we didn't have Instagram. So like this was kind of moving more into, I'd say, the 2010, 12, like 13 era.
Facebook,
and,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I kind of just started working with other people, just trying to get an idea. Like they would give me literally the macros and I would just like go ahead and do it myself. So it's really doing myself anyway. But and then they would like check and be like, hey, how's everything going? Like I haven't heard from you for like 2 or 3 weeks.
So there were no weekly check-ins at those times.
No. It was literally basically kind of like, here's what I would suggest for you. Here's what cardio I would suggest for you. And then we kind of like went from there. And then it was more like a hearsay on terms of who I should coach with. There would be other athletes that say, hey, I really think that, you would work well with XYZ, and then that's kind of how it ended up, more of a jump. It wasn't like any coach really reached out and said, hey, let's work together type ordeal. But it was more like, hey, I'm going to recommend you go with this person. And each and every coach is different. And that's what I mean. I do like with Rafael is like, it's not like a format. He has to figure out your own body first, where a lot of coaches are like, I do keto and this is the only way we're going to do this, or I do this and this is the only way I'm going to do this. And, I've had coaches before where it was like I'd sit down with a girl that's in a complete different class than me. This just happened recently. We were done. We were having a drink at the bar and I'm in bodybuilding. This girl's in, I think, bikini, and she had the same protocol that I did. And
Can I ask you one thing before you go? How, on that topic, isn't this extremely dangerous, Zimmermann, to just have a set thing before and give it to the same type of division, because it's completely different with bikini or figure or women's bodybuilding? And why are coaches doing this, Zimmermann? And what is the reason for this? Because it's easier, or?
Probably it's a time thing, maybe, because they don't have time and they just say like, okay, I just give the person the same plan, but then they maybe should change the name above, because I saw this also, that they just send out the same protocol. But also they just think, okay, this is a woman, this is a man, this works for a man, half of this will work for a woman. So, and sometimes it's just the knowledge that's lagging, probably, because I don't understand how someone is approaching a bikini or even wellness, whatever, with a women's bodybuilding athlete or women's physique athlete, let's say this. It's completely different, like, in terms of everything, food, training, recovery. I mean, we had this all the time. Like, you probably need an arm day, or at least focus on your arms when you compete above figure. So, and when you do bikini, you cannot like train push-pull leg split.
So what happens then, Theresa, when you sit and you get the same, you talk to a bikini girl and you notice you have the same plan? What happens then?
I wasn't very happy. I mean, I get that the portions are going to be a little bit different, but it was still the same foods, the same timing, and all that stuff, And then I will stress, you do get coaches that are very heavy in push diuretics. And, I've been doing this for a very long time. So when I come to somebody and said, hey, I have made so many mistakes and I have destroyed my physique on stage, I've worked so hard, we look great in peak week, and then we screw it up in one day, and they still force those diuretics. They don't listen to me as an athlete. And 9 out of 10 times, that's where I completely messed up, or I've been tighter. My body, just like you said, we all do not do well with the same plan. Like, my body does not. It looks at diuretics as a foreign object, and it will go backwards on me. Not everybody's diuretic is going to do what it does for everybody else. And that's what I think is like the red flag there. Like, most people don't even do a trial run, or they just know that it worked with maybe their top athlete, and whatever worked with that top athlete, they just hammer with everybody else. And it's a trickle effect.
And I can, speaking of, since I don't know you that well, but I know you a little bit, and that's been a couple of times exactly that diuretic thing, where you're looking incredible, and then you use diuretic, and you probably you went from a first to a fourth, or from first to a third. And how does that work? Do they say we have to use it, or trust me in this, or like, how does that work how does this approach work? Because you already told them it's not really my thing. It might ruin my look. How does that work?
It was like I got blindsided on, I'm not even going to mention a show so people don't know who I'm talking about. People will know. Yeah. I said no, and I had one literally just dumped down my throat in my hotel room. And then physically almost just take this, yeah? Opened it up, poured what he thought, and just made me take it. And then again, automatically, I'm going to stress and I'm going to release cortisol that night, because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to wake up and I'm not going to like what I see in the mirror. I've had other coaches that obviously used it, and then right after the show, they'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I got greedy. Obviously, you can't use a diuretic. Obviously, you need food. And it's like, then they can kind of state that I did tell you we could have placed and already been on our way, but now we got to try again. Wow. And that's why I'm so big on the way that Rafael, he listens. He truly just listens. And we've already game planned on, okay, well, I don't think that you'll be able to do this. Like, he just actually sits there and listens when you talk, because we're both trying to get, that title. We're still trying, we still want to all go to the Olympia, or, if you're an NPC athlete, you want that first place, you want to get nationally qualified. And the more that you understand from a coach's standpoint, and a client standpoint, it just meshes. And as long as you can communicate, that's what's going to create a crazy package.
Do these coaches have any type of remorse after things goes down the toilet the next day, or like, is there any sorry, or is there any type of concerns after?
It's more like, oh, we're going to try another show. And then sometimes my body's not ready for another show. So that I don't really plan to keep competing, because as a woman, that's why I've been doing it for 20 years. I can't do show to show to show to show. My health means more to me than anything. And I've seen so many girls in the industry that are very short lived and might only be able to do this 1 or 2 years. I'm going 20 years deep. But I know when to pull the brakes, I know when to stop, and I know when to communicate. But then sometimes my communication to a coach ends up being more of a battle or an argument. And then I'm terrified to check in with them, and I have to state, I'm just communicating with you, trying to tell you this. But then I'm terrified of the backlash email I'm going to get, making me feel like I'm not good enough, or I need to suffer more, or I should just do what I'm told.
Zimmermann, this is a really... It's troublesome, because you haven't been as long in the women's bodybuilding game, Zimmermann, but these are a lot of the same coaches that's going on repeat in women's bodybuilding. we have some new coaches now, actually. I would say this year, Theresa, and last 2 years, we see a new group come. A lot of the older are out. But this type of approach, Zimmermann, when you can't talk to a coach normally, you can't have an open relationship, and you feel almost afraid of talking to the coach. This is not a coach athlete anymore, because it's not supposed to be a team.
That's what I mean. I mean, as a coach, you want to have an athlete who knows their body, because if you cannot tell me if you're exhausted, tired, your sleep is worse or anything, if you don't listen to your body and can get proper feedback to your coach, then your coach cannot adjust it. And just going based by how you look in the past, is pretty much the feedback I get. That of course, when they wanted to compete, and I say, yeah, but this probably takes another 4 to 6 weeks. When was, just for instance, your last day off completely? Then they say yeah, since we started prep, I'm on 60 minutes of cardio, for example. And then I said yes, but you aren't tired or what? Yes, of course I am. Yeah, but you didn't tell your coach? Yes, I did, but he said I need to push through, this is prep and whatever. And there are some differences, because at a certain level, of course, I think Theresa can confirm this, it's not about saying, oh, if you're a bit hungry or so. But if you feel really exhausted, you're tired, you're watery from it, your cortisol levels are sky high. And if that a coach doesn't see, especially in women, I think it's different, because they respond so much faster to a short break or a small carb up. Even if it's 120 grams of carbs and a day of cardio, they look completely different because of their hormones and everything. And if you just think, okay, now she looks watery, now her weight is up, now we need to push even more cardio, and that leads to this soft looks on stage. And then hammering a diuretic on all this is probably the worst case scenario, I think.
Some of the most, I'm not gonna say controversial, but a lot of people want to know is that you are one of the few, I don't say few, there's not a lot of girls who've been 20 years in it with still keeping what we call the femininity, you know what I mean? That still, of course, you don't look identical the same, because we all get a little bit older, but I would say you look kind of the same the last 20 years facially and hair and all these type of things. And how does what's red flags when it comes to, I don't want to go into your personal detail what you are using, because that's personal, but when it comes to steroids, how does this work? Are there some coaches that you've been working with, without naming names, that are pushing too much steroids? Or are they asking you what do you used to take, or they just have a set plan on what to take? How does this work, and what's some of the worst cases that they have been trying to make you take that you didn't want to do?
Some, like in the very, very beginning, like in my early stage, there was some that was like I was very new to it. I really didn't understand. I did a little bit of research, and I would come back to the guy and say, "Hey, I'm not taking that." And he'd be like, "Okay, that's fine." And then most of the other people that I would work with, they kind of knew my goal of the femininity and what I wanted to look like. So they didn't really push, but there were several few that it was like, here's what you're taking. You can get this here. This is what we're going to do. And there was multiple times where what I was on was making me suicidal.
So
And I would
you were suicidal, really?
yeah, it was
Because of
making
the
me,
high amount, or the specific type of compounds?
I'm going to say the type. Like I literally was not myself. I was somebody that I didn't even know had like a demon inside me. And it was like they basically they didn't want me to stop, but I was like, I'm pulling myself off. I can't do this anymore. And there's some like that would come through, and even my fiance Jeff would be like, no, you're not taking that. And it's like you're giving me protocols that I should never even touch. And it's like the communication, especially with even girls getting started, do your research. And there are other athletes like myself. I do try to answer all of my questions. But again, there are other ones that put themselves on a pedestal and don't want to help explain or get anybody on the right track. But it's just do your homework and make sure this is the right choice. Because as we've talked about before, all of this stuff that we do and we take is irreversible once it's gone too far. And you just have to know your lane and where you want to go with it. And don't let the sport dictate yourself and your future self.
How long does it take to go, as you say, like demand like crazy? Like how long did that take until like, wow, I feel not myself? Like how long did it take?
It was pretty straightforward
Oh, wow.
because it was something like new that I took, and I knew that that's what it was, and I just had no choice but to stop. And it was just some of the preps were a little rough, like they were just too much. And it's like when to push and pull the brakes. And again, that's where going back to the communication, where if I feel that it's not something that I should take, they should listen to me. But it also, like a lot of the times whenever I'm trying to communicate with them, they look at it as I'm trying to make an excuse or I don't want it bad enough. Well, I'm sorry, no trophy is worth me losing my face or me having some type of internal health issue. But some of them just, they want that notch on that belt. They want that extra win. They want that another, win or another Olympia qualification. And it's crazy.
Yeah, that's probably the worst. Zimmerman, how should you approach, like how do you, obviously there is something used in women's bodybuilding, obviously the most hardcore division. How do you approach that one? How much to take and when to go higher or lower? Because this is a decision. Obviously it's very personal, but you as a coach, how do you come up to this? Or how should an athlete approach this with a coach?
I think this the problem. There are always like two type of women. The one who just doesn't want to take anything at all, or they are just like, yeah, in the past I just took 750 EQ with 500 tests, and you were like, wait, what? And now there are some who are doing their research, and okay, that can make sense for a woman, that is overkill. But I don't think you should really give it out to people. You should always maybe like you ask, what have you done before, especially when you work with pros. And I mostly now work with pros. So they have some experience with different compounds. And when they say, hey, XYZ gives me anxiety or like depression or hair loss or whatever, yeah, of course, I will not say this is good for you, because you also need to take in consideration when it doesn't need to be like any mental things, but if you cannot sleep on it, for example, yeah, then it's probably not the right thing, because for me, sleep is more important than some milligram of whatever to improve the look, because we see a lot of women who doesn't look good and they are way over the top with their total dosage, and then we have some who are taking half of it and they look way better, because they have less inflammation going on and less side effects in general, and they're just healthier in general. And it all comes down like how much cardio you are doing, how are you following your diet. I think Theresa can confirm this. And of course, in the end, there are some things which can polish your look, but if you don't build the foundation on the basics, you probably make it worse by taking all this stuff. But as a coach, I would say you just, yeah, you communicate again. That's again to communication. What have you done in the past? Okay, this might sound good. Let's try it. Once we notice anything, do regular blood work. Let's see how it goes. And then, yeah, sometimes less is more.
As a beginner then, Theresa, would you you want to recommend anything, but is it almost better to experiment a little bit on yourself than to ask a coach for your first cycle then? Probably almost.
I mean, I would not experience by myself. You know, I would literally, I would want somebody that's qualified enough to understand, you know, certain things to direct, because there's so much, honestly, misinformation, sorry, on the internet. Like you can Google stuff, but like you don't know, again, like he said, you don't know what they're doing diet wise. And like that's why I don't agree with some of these coaches that say like, oh my God, this person's got like they're eating 1,000 carbs. Well, any human being can't eat 1,000 carbs. Like, where's their drugs at? Like, where is their tea at? Where is their, because there's a reason why they can get away with eating that many carbs. You know, but then if you're brand new coming out, they're like, oh, that's what I must need to do. But they don't know the whole true story. They don't know like their stress levels. They don't know their job. They don't know their food. They don't know their cardio regimen, but they literally just state what they're eating. You can't do that. You know,
well, that's a new gimmick, Theresa, to get clients. You heard that one. Yeah, she's dieting on 3,800 calories for the last 3 weeks. What? Okay, well. Last question before we ask some bodybuilding question. After the show, how has the communication been with different coaches after the show? Because that's also an extremely important period I believe. After the show. Are they communicating well? Is there any plan? Like, how has it been after the show? Because that's very important.
I'd say like my experience on the last few shows were not good. There was no designated plan to anything. I feel like that the ones, you know, that I did end up working with was kind of like, well, you're a pro, you should know what to do, you know, and everybody's a little bit different depending on what you're on.
And you were paying for this?
Yeah. And it you kind of get ghosted, you know, a lot. And it's like, if you were trying to keep me as, you know, your athlete and try to fix things and make things better for the next couple of shows, you think we would communicate and try to like be better the next time. But it's kind of like a free for all. Like you're lost, you know, and that's the worst thing. Like, I mean, when I coach people, I try to reverse them. I try to teach, you know, the proper reverse so we don't get, you know, we don't gain all that weight back. You know, now I know, we know as a pro doing it, it's not as bad, but like I'd say the miscommunication afterward is it's never there. You know, and I think that's a problem with a lot of people, but they do put you up here because you're a pro, you've been to these stages, you should know what to do. But again, each coach has their own different protocol. So I feel like there's some other different type of, you know, reverse diet that should be done with each individual client.
Zimmermann, I see we have 6 minutes left, so I want to ask you Zimmermann quickly about that. If a coach don't communicate as much after show as during the prep, this is not the coach for any athlete if you're paying, yeah?
Yeah, that's what I think always. It's like your prep doesn't last like 60 to 20 weeks. Your prep probably lasts like 28 to 32, because the reverse phase is almost as, if not more important, because if you mess it up, it can be much unhealthier than the whole 16 weeks of prep. If you're considering like binge eating, a rapid weight gain, on your blood pressure, your heart, what is the effect on your kidneys or anything, a lot of people ending up in hospital. So if you don't have a plan, you can have your day off or whatever, but you still shouldn't, like, even a couple days of just doing whatever you want when your body's so sensitive and without telling your coach what to do. And so just that he knows, and ask also, hey, how are you doing? Because there's this mental hole, I call it, after the prep, where a lot of athletes are in, because the goal is over and they don't know what's next. I think you should at least like checking in twice a week to make sure everything is going to the right direction. Of course, you're getting softer. This is part of the process. But if you want to improve, I think this is not like you're putting on 20 pounds of muscles in the 8 weeks post show, but you can definitely like grow relatively good and recover from all the stress from the prep. And if you fuck it up, like really, mess it up, and you don't talk to your coach, I think this is a big problem. Also, like probably the same as when you don't talk to your coach properly during the prep.
That was some insights. I hope people who, specifically girls, when they want to start competing or is competing, like this is some of the issues. And Theresa has the most experience, like out of any now. So take some advice there. But now, before we go, Theresa, we want to. You are a women's bodybuilding legend, and when are we gonna come back to stage, Theresa? Yes, it's great with movies, and this is great success. But what's the plan of? What are we thinking? Off season this entire year, and then start a prep early in February, and then we've talked to Zimmermann and myself. So if we pay the flights and hotel, would you be able to come to Spain?
I would. I probably would. Yeah, absolutely.
Zimmermann, we already talked about this to sponsor her flights and hotel. If she can come to Spain, because there's a lot of European fans. You know, you have a lot. You probably get a lot of DMs from European fans. Can you imagine yourself, Empro? Have you ever been to Spain?
No, I've never been there. Yeah.
Never been to Europe?
No. And I have been on front covers of magazines in South Africa and UK, and I've had a 2-page spread in People's Magazine over there, and I just have never been able to get there. I know I have a ton of fans over in Europe.
No, because we love Triple O, we love Andrea Shaw's show and all this, but you've done it now 3-4 times, yeah?
Yes, twice. Yep.
Can we see something new? Spain,
I tried,
Portugal, New York Pro. You know what I mean, like.
Yeah, I tried to. I've won the Chicago. I won the Norfolk. I was the only one that won the Indy Pro. I was the very first one that won the Triple O.
Yeah.
So I'm all about moving and changing. I always want to win something different. I don't always want to keep winning the same shows. But going back to your question, our goal when we got together was to kind of get ourselves in a good situation right now, get my health under control, make sure hormones are all ready to go, and it is to compete in 2027. And I will be on that stage at the Olympia. That is my goal.
And realistically, Zimmermann, with a little bit on different type of her body, and she has one of the best backs in the world. She got the tremendous structure and overall look that gets rewarded. A little bit improvements here and there, and then peak perfectly. This is still a top 5, top 6 Olympian type of look.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I think I was so honest with her in the beginning and told her, "Hey, you really can do it," and she knew it insidely, probably, or subconscious or something. So this is probably something we should take into consideration, depending on how the year is going, of course. But I think we're back in a good rhythm already these couple weeks since we started. So I don't really think that June, July is like this is 10 months. So much can happen in 10 months, you know.
Yeah. Well, you have to let us know as early as possible, Theresa, because you're in for Spain. We will make the adjustments early, because I also think people in Europe, they've never seen you before, you know.
No, no. And I actually, I mean, it's one thing I get Q&As all the time and ask, when I'm coming, over, and I'm always like, hopefully soon. So hopefully this is the soon, in 2027.
Yeah. Okay, Zimmermann, Theresa, couple of words before we go. What do you want to say, Theresa?
I thank you guys for, having me on. Really look forward to, a wonderful off season with him and a good season in 2027. If you're just starting out prepping, do your homework, check out Rafael. You'll probably have a very good experience with him. I already have so far, and we haven't even really tapped into what, we can fully do. So stay positive and believe in yourself and do everything you want to do in life.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.